Now if you go into Corona, you'll be asking me so many questions.
No. Barbell Radio. Hello! What is up, you guys? Thank you for tuning in with Barbell Radio. This is your host, Canon, and my goal in this podcast is to bring you valuable information through talks and interviews with fitness experts such as athletes, researchers, coaches, and so on. On this episode, which is the second episode of Barbell Radio, I got to speak with Dr. Jeremiah Stanley, who is an MD and also a PhD candidate looking at viruses at Yokohama City University in Japan. Now, we discussed thoroughly about the gut microbiome, which plays a vital role in regulating metabolic function and energy balance, as well as managing the immune system and so much more. He connects gut health with exercise and discusses some recent studies on how exercise affects the gut, independent of diet. Also, we will be able to hear some information about the coronavirus, which I'm sure a lot of listeners are very curious about. Now, I will link all the studies that we discussed today in the description of this episode of the podcast. Now, that's enough from me, and let's get into the interview. Barbell Radio. Okay, so we have a very special guest today. Hello, Jerry.
Hi, Kanan.
How are you today?
Doing good. Genki desu.
Genki desu. We just took a very small walk to, what is the temple called?
It's Shomyoji.
Shomyoji.
Kanazawa Bunko. It's one of the peaceful places.
Yes. And it was about maybe 20-minute walk over there, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You kind of expect a natural scenery in the center of the city. You
Exactly.
don't, right?
And it was like a nice garden and it had a nice bridge and lots of fish.
You fed popcorn to the fish.
Yes. And there were turtles as well. Okay, so before we get into the real topic today of what we're going to be talking about, I just want to provide the educational background of Jerry. Please interrupt me if I'm wrong. I took this completely out of his Facebook page. But Jerry completed his bachelor's degree in medicine at PSG Institute of Medical Sciences and Research in India. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go on. You're good to go.
And then he continued his MD. He completed his MD specializing in microbiology at Christian Medical College in Vellore in India. And currently Jerry is involved in some research at Yokohama City University, specifically on viruses. Now, I just want you to give, before we get into the topic of the microbiome, I just want you to please mention some of the overview of some studies that you've been involved in.
Oh, thanks for the nice introduction, Kanan. Okay, yeah, so I'm doing my PhD here at Yokohama City University. And my topic of research is about HIV. And you know, HIV is like a global pandemic, a sexually transmitted disease with no cure. Kind of my study is about finding a cure for HIV. So that's like, sounds too dramatic.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe.
It sounds like a very broad topic, right?
Yeah, so if you know about HIV, it's like kind of different from other viruses. So HIV kind of puts its DNA into the human DNA.
Right.
So it kind of mixes the virus DNA to the human DNA. So that's the big problem that we have. So my research is about how to segregate the virus DNA from the human DNA, and is there any specific medicines or factors that can stop the virus from mixing with the DNA. So it's all about the viral DNA and separating it from the human DNA.
Right, thank you. And me and Jerry also hang out. We go to the gym together as well, and I've heard a lot of interesting things from Jerry about his studies.
I kind of get intimidated going to gym with you,
No need. Anyways, well, I just want to slowly get into the topic. But before we go dive into the discussion of the microbiome, I just want you to give a brief introduction of what it actually is and why is it that to think about the microbiome, why is it so important?
Okay, microbiome. So,
big question, right?
Yep. So microbe actually. So before I go into microbiome, let me tell you about microbe.
Okay.
Microbe is any organism or any living thing that is not visible to your naked eye. That's like microorganism. It's a microbe. So most people think like a microbe is always kind of a dangerous one.
Yes.
Or something that is bad. So that's totally wrong, because the whole world is full of microbes, and there's a lot of microbes which are really good to us. So like we love enjoying a beer or a wine.
Yes.
So these wine and beer or whiskey or whichever drink that you have, how did you get it? You got it from grapes or barley or wheat or whatever, or potatoes. So the microbes kind of ferment them and give you this drink. So aren't they good?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you have yogurt, you have natto. All these are like delicious food which you get only because of the microbes. So microbes are actually doing a lot of favor to us, and we are kind of coexisting with them.
Right. So, sorry, just to interrupt. Why do you think that we build this really bad name of microbes throughout?
I think it's because of the ones that cause disease.
Right.
So those are like getting the bad name for all the other microbes too, because we take the beneficial microbes for granted. We just don't know, or we just turn a blind eye to this the good microbes in your yogurt or in your natto. So you just think it's yogurt, it's natto. You don't see the bacteria behind the beneficial effects of that.
Right.
But when you get a disease like a flu or a diarrhea or something like malaria or anything, you think, okay, it's a microbe. So that's why you think like a microbe is always a bad one.
Right. And but it is in fact it is doing us very good, right?
Yes.
And without it, you said
yes, it's like we are coexisting with the microbes. And going back to the question of your microbiome. Okay, the microbiome consists of like millions of organisms, and the number of organisms, the microorganisms, actually outnumber the number of cells in your body.
Wow.
So these organisms are like different kinds of a variety of organisms, and they all live together.
Yep.
And kind of coexist with you and give a beneficial effect to you together. Of course, there are some bad ones, some rotten apples in a basket. So you have some kind of microbes in the microbiome which don't offer any benefit, or sometimes they offer kind of some bad side effects or something. So, but it's a proportion. You have to have like many types of bacteria, viruses and fungi together, and these all live in your intestines.
Right.
It's called as a gut microbiome, and these really help in your everyday functions.
Right. And when we do say gut, what do we include? Like you said, the intestines, right? And the small intestines and the colon as well, right?
Yeah, the gut is actually starting from your mouth till the anal cavity. So anything in between. So usually the microbiome kind of resides in the intestines, the small and the large intestines. The stomach is very acidic, and anything about the stomach is so transient. So these are not of much importance. But after the stomach, from the small intestine and the large intestine, you have millions of microorganisms functioning together and helping us out. So this is called as a microbiome.
Okay, and the microbiome, I know, has become like an attention of research almost nowadays. And why do you think that this is so important for us to research that?
Yeah, so we humans, we just think like we are the superior species on the planet, and we can live alone. We can form our own ecosystems, but it's not that. The microbiome proves that you need the microbes for you to live.
Right.
So research for the past 10 years, I think there is a lot of, since the past 10 years, I think there is a lot of importance on this microbiome, and we are kind of unearthing bits and pieces of information. We're just scratching the surface yet, but as far as I know, like the studies say, like your microbiome is helpful in keeping your immunity, in your exercise ability, in your a good mental health, and even fighting other infections. So it has a lot of beneficial functions and lot more to be identified.
Yeah, and I thought it was very interesting about what we talked about during lunch about the connection between microbiome and the brain as well, right? There seems to be some sort of connection.
So this is called as a gut microbiome axis. So we often say we have a gut feel, right?
Right.
So maybe it's the microbiome that's thinking for us, you know?
That's crazy. It sounds very weird, but I guess it makes sense. Also, I just want to know, what are some things that we can do to positively influence our microbiome through diet? Like, what are some things that we can do?
So when everyone is born, when we are an infant, when we are just born, we have very limited number of microbes in our gut. So the microbiome is also just born. So it has to grow with us. So everybody acquires a unique signature, a unique pattern of microbiome inside themselves, and this is acquired by through your diet, or even through your exercise. So, and this kind of grows with you, and it forms a unique pattern of a unique microbial pattern in your guts.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. What are some specific foods, like you mentioned, fermentable foods, help increase?
So as far as we know, these fermented foods like yogurt and like natto and any other the good fermented foods, they kind of positively improvise the gut microbiome. And fatty rich foods like you have like processed foods with lots of oils and fats, they kind of negatively influence the microbiome.
Right. So the change in diet through the generation must be a lot of,
it's a serious thing, that I don't know, we will be knowing whatever is it, the changes in microbiomes, we'll be knowing only like after a decade or so.
That's true. And what do you think about as you mentioned, processed food? We're eating less of, for example, like fiber and stuff, vegetables and fruits.
Yes.
Do you think that is affecting the gut as well?
Yes. There was a recent study about the white compound in your mayonnaise.
Okay.
That kind of kills the good microbes in your microbiome.
Oh.
So you can see like how each and every everything you eat has a small effect on the microbiome, and you eat it like every day, it's gonna affect. You can see the results in the long run. As you said, the fiber-rich foods, they kind of the natural, the unprocessed, and fiber-rich foods, they kind of positively influence the microbiome, while the processed foods kind of negatively influence that.
Right. Okay, that's very interesting. It reminds us that we have to be careful or aware of what we're putting in our mouth, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and also you just mentioned about the foods, the dietary factors that influence the microbiome. But today, Jerry, you might address a little bit about the effect of exercise on the gut. And I just want to introduce two studies that we've been discussing.
Yes,
right?
Bring it on.
Okay. So one study, it was done in 2017. Both studies in 2017. One of them, they transplanted a fecal material, so from a material from the stool from an exercise and sedentary mice, so exercise and non-exercise mice, into the colons of sedentary, germ-free mice. And they found out that there was a clear difference between those receiving microbes from the exercise and the non-exercise mice. And then the second study that we've also discussed was a human study, and it was tracking the change in the compositions of microbiota in human participants as they transition from a non-exercise state to an active lifestyle. They found out that the fecal concentration of exercised and non-exercised subjects were completely different, and they could definitely, They could definitely tell them apart.
Yeah. I can see you're still fascinated about these studies. Okay, the essence of the study is about exercise by itself alters the microbiome in a favorable way.
Yes.
So the first study you said was there were a group of mice which were exercised. So they put the mice in a box with a wheel, and they were running on the wheel. And then there was another group of mice in another box where they were just feeding it and didn't allow it to run around. So they took the microbes from the exercised mice, they took the microbes from the sedentary mice, put it into a germ-free mice, right? And they found out that the germ-free mice, which got the microbiome of the exercised mice, they were kind of protected to many inflammations of the intestine.
Right.
Okay, they kind of had an immunity to intestinal inflammations. Whereas the ones which did not exercise and the mouse which got them, they were kind of susceptible to inflammations.
Right.
So this study really shows that, it shows two things. One, exercise by itself can alter your microbiome in a beneficial way. And number two, the benefit studied here is that the exercise-induced microbiome protects you from inflammation, so it strengthens your immunity.
Right.
So this was a mouse study, and then the human study that you said, it was almost the same way. So they took exercised humans, they took sedentary humans, and they found their ability to withstand intestinal inflammation. So they got the same results as that of the mice study. 10 years ago, we didn't have this data, but now the science is developing at a rapid pace. So we'll be unearthing new information every day. Maybe you should keep track of that.
Definitely, and I will link both of these researches in the description. And also, you've also sent me some studies about exercise increasing the microbial diversity, right?
Yes.
What is it? I'm just wondering, by microbial diversity, you're increasing the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria, right? So what does it mean why is it good to have a large diversity?
Everything runs on diversity. So it's you can never say it's a good bacteria or a bad bacteria. You should have the composition correct. So the microbial diversity of the microbiome kind of governs its activity, and this diversity should be maintained at a proper proportion.
Right.
So if the proportion of bacteria A should be 25%, and bacteria B should be 10%, and bacteria X should be 1%, and that kind of offers a good effect.
Right.
So if you kind of skew up these ratios, it becomes bad. So exercise or food kind of maintains the proportions. So it's you should have the right proportion of each bacteria. So there's nothing like good bacteria and wrong bacteria. It becomes bad only if you mess up with these proportions.
Okay. So is it fair to say, sorry if this is a stupid question, but is it fair to say that it is also important for us to eat diverse, different kinds of foods to increase different kinds of bacteria?
Like
Maybe it's
like
not
I
so.
said, we're
It's not
still
that
not
easy
aware
to-
of so much things.
Right.
But we just know that we should eat the good type of food to keep the diversity, the proportion right.
Okay.
And one more study, I'd like to point out, maybe after the two studies.
Yeah.
This one is a very specific study about exercise.
Okay.
What the scientists did was they took the microbe called Veillonella. So Veillonella is like maybe the best microbe of the microbiome identified so far.
Ooh.
So it's found in higher concentration in athletes.
Okay.
So this is a significant association that we know. So the scientists try to check this hypothesis. Is Veillonella required for athletic performance? So what they did was they took the microbes from trained athletes,
Right.
and they took it and placed it inside the intestine of mice. So the mice which got Veillonella,
Yeah.
they ran on treadmills for longer time than mice which did not have Veillonella. So you can see here that
That's crazy.
yeah, it's just like we just entered into this new realm of microbiome and exercise or athletic or fitness. So there is something called as the Athletic Microbiome Project which is going on, and we will get to know more microbes, or we might get to know the right combination. So anybody could be Usain Bolt.
We were just talking about this earlier, that it might be a form of doping or something like that. But hey, you never know. Things may come up. Okay, so maybe this is like a great segue to move into the discussion of something that you're more specialized in, which is the study of viruses and the immune system. And from those three studies, it's fair to say that exercise alone has a positive effect on the gut microbiome, which then can influence the immune system. So there is already like an indirect link between exercise and the immune system. Maybe you can tell us some more of the direct ways in which exercise can affect immunity.
So there are studies which show that exercise improves the hormones.
Right.
The hormones, we have a lot of hormones. So this is totally away from the microbes. So hormones is like secreted by different kinds of cells in the body. So
Right.
you've got like different types of hormones, like growth hormone, insulin, testosterone, estrogen, and there's serotonin and endorphins, enkephalins. There's so many.
Yep.
And you need to have a right balance of these hormones to be in a good state of mind, or be in a good in a state of well-being. So studies have shown that exercises
Yep.
bring about this balance of hormones.
Right.
So you feel like really the serotonin, for example, is a happy hormone. It keeps you happy. And the same thing is for endorphins and enkephalins.
Right.
So these are the hormones which give you a sense of well-being. So it's shown that exercise kind of regulates these hormones. So
Right.
that's why after a good workout you feel refreshed,
Yes.
and you feel happy, and
Energized.
these hormones
Yes.
in turn control the immune cells.
Really?
So exercises not only makes you happy,
Right.
through these hormones it kind of makes your immunity better.
No, that's really cool actually, because I did know that exercise does affect your hormones, but I didn't know how those hormones actually influenced the immune system as well. So just to sum up on the things that we have talked about so far, we have discussed the importance of our gut and what we can do to improve our gut health through dietary factors such as fermented foods and dietary fiber. Now, Jerry, since you specialize in viruses, it would be stupid for me to not talk about the coronavirus. Now, can you please give us a brief overview of what we currently know about the virus?
Oh, the corona monster.
Yeah, the corona monster.
The coronavirus. Okay. The coronavirus, which is like the really hyped virus right now in the media, we have to know that it's not a single entity.
Yes.
Coronavirus per se means that it's a family of viruses. And what we have now is one of the members of the coronavirus.
Okay.
So this one is named now as SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV-2. So which means that there must be a CoV-1, right?
Yeah.
So I guess you must be knowing about the SARS virus of 2003. That is also a coronavirus. And there was a MERS virus of 2012, which is also a coronavirus. So what we should be clear here is like coronavirus is a family of viruses.
Right.
Just like you say a dog, it has so many types of dogs. Like you have Labradors, you have you have Labradors, you have Great Danes, you have German Shepherds, you have Poodles and Pomeranians. So just like that, coronavirus family has so many types of coronaviruses. That is like the canine coronavirus of dogs, the feline coronaviruses, the bat coronaviruses, the human coronaviruses, and the SARS virus, the MERS virus, and the newest kid in the block is SARS-CoV-2, which is the present coronavirus.
Yes. Okay, so what are some of the statistics showing about the mortality rate and maybe the transmission, like how often is it transmitted to other people? So what are the statistics like?
So we know that this new SARS-CoV-2, it started in December or late November or December in Wuhan. Okay. In China. Yeah. So when it first started as an outbreak, there was like a lot of commotion, and then there was a lot of science going on there, and then we got the statistics that it kills around 2 to 2.5% of people that it infects. But recently, now we see that the mortality rate is slightly increased, like it kills more than 3% of the people. So if 100 people are infected, 3 people are killed by the virus.
Right.
And if we kind of break it down according to the age, it doesn't kill any children. There's no reports of SARS-CoV-2 killing any children. And the statistics of people that die under 40 years of age is like 0.2%, which means like if among 1,000 infected people, only 2 people die if they are under the age of 40. But above the age of 40, and like as the age increases, the mortality is higher.
Why do you think so?
It's the answer is really obvious, because the coronavirus affects the lung. The new coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2, affects the lung, and it causes a pneumonia. And the old people, as we get old, our lung function kind of deteriorates, and we also have a lot of other diseases like diabetes and hypertension and heart diseases. So the old people are really fragile and vulnerable. That's why the mortality rate is higher in old people, which is almost around 15%, 14 to 15%.
Right. And you stated the estimate of the mortality rate, it could be around 3%. Is that including the population that doesn't report the virus as well?
That's a good question. So the population that doesn't report the virus forms the denominator when you calculate the mortality rate. So if we think that there are a lot of people missed, and these people will come into the denominator, the missed people. So which means that it will kind of reduce the mortality rate, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but we go with the statistics provided by the WHO, the World Health Organization, or the Centers for Disease Control, CDC. So, according to these statistics, so if we don't speculate much, we believe these statistics because they are scientifically proven. It's somewhere around or over 3.
And that is probably the most reasonable place to gather your information from, because
guys,
where else would you?
Please don't fall in for the misinformation. Don't fall for the misinformation. Always trust for credible sources, and CDC or WHO. These are the two most credible sources which constantly update about the corona virus outbreak.
Okay. And you know how the spreading of information is crazy in this generation, and it is very hard for us to know what is true information, because obviously there are some false information about, you know, how dangerous it is. Like, what can you say about this?
No, the mother of all false informations was like coronavirus is a bioweapon, which was like, you know, people just buy it. But if we can, So if we can understand the new SARS coronavirus 2, the genes or the DNA of this new SARS coronavirus 2 resembles very closely to the SARS coronavirus 1.
Okay.
And also to the bat coronaviruses. So the most possible explanation for the origins of this virus would be like from the bats.
Right.
So what we know as of now is like it started in Wuhan from the wet markets. So possibly the bats in the wet markets must have been infected. And we should know like that. We should know the fact that viruses evolve. So when two different kind of animals meet, so this virus would have been the viruses of the bats. When in the wet market, the bats was exposed to other animals like pangolins, like snakes or dogs or whatever. They might have mixed with the other viruses from the other animals, and then from these animals the virus has jumped to humans. So this could be the most possible explanation. Not a bioweapon. It's not engineered.
There's some very interesting stories about it. I've heard from some lady, she's a gym member of a gym that I work at. She said, they were doing an experiment with bats in China, and then the lab exploded, and that's how the virus was made. There's some funny stories, right? So if you want some credible piece of information, you said you would go to the CDC. Which
or WHO. And just to add up to this story of the gym friend, you know, it's like humans, anything new and anything unknown, humans always react with fear.
Right.
So maybe that is the main reason why people buy into this. So I suggest people not to fall for misinformation, not to be afraid. Just check for credible sources, CDC or WHO.
Right. Okay, and as you said, the mortality is 2% up to 3%.
Yes.
But we kind of forget the fact that other viruses, such as the seasonal flu, a lot more people die from it, and you know, other viruses as well. Comparing the coronaviruses to other viruses is not as fatal as we might imagine. And as you said, things such as, you know, it's a new virus, so we act a certain way about it. Is there anything else that could contribute to the fact that we respond to this virus in such a absurd, crazy way? Or do you think it's just because it's a new virus? Or is there something specific that is special about this virus that we need to make a big deal about?
Yeah, that's a nice question. So since you brought in this seasonal flu, the seasonal flu has a mortality rate of around 1%. It's like 3 times lesser than the coronavirus. But seasonal flu, it's still a killer because it infects a lot of people. It infects millions. I think last year there was about 20 million people infected by the seasonal flu.
Right.
So if we consider the number of infections, even a small % of mortality, there will be a lot of people dying.
Yes.
So if we extrapolate that to the coronavirus, it's 3 times bigger killer than the seasonal flu. And say for example, if there is a country with like 1 million people and there is coronavirus entering that country, and it can kill 3%. So that's what's 3% of 1 million. That's like around 30,000.
Yes.
Okay, so 30,000 is still a big number. And also, there's like 80% of the corona infections, the SARS-CoV-2 infections are less severe. So you don't need to treat them. It's just like a small common cold or a small flu. You have just a fever or a headache and then it just goes off. 80%. The remaining 20% of the people, they need some treatment. They need some treatment like maybe supplementing oxygen or just some treatment in a hospital. So if the virus infects 1 million people, then there's like 20% of the million is like 200,000 people. 200,000 people need to be hospitalized.
Yes.
Do we have the infrastructure to hospitalize 200,000 new people over the already sick people? So I think that's why we have to be afraid of corona. It's more of a epidemiological and health infrastructure issue than a personal issue.
Right. Okay. And just out of curiosity, can you have the coronavirus but not even realize it?
Yeah, you can, because the clinical manifestations of coronavirus vary from asymptomatic infection, which is like you might be having, but you just don't know that you're having it. It doesn't affect you. That's the least. And to the maximum is like severe pneumonia, where there is lung damage, and you have a respiratory distress where you develop shortness of breath, you can't breathe enough, and then that leads to like organ failure, like kidney failure or liver failure.
Compared to the people that might have the coronavirus but not have any symptoms, compared to the 80% of people having the mild symptoms, what are the difference between those populations? Like, is it because they have a strong immune system, or is it because the virus is not affecting them as much?
We never know about the virus-host interaction. But what we know is like the virus does not cause much damage in people less than 40 years of age. So maybe it's due to the immunity.
Okay.
The people under 40 years are like have a strong immune system and they fight back the virus more efficiently. And the more mortality occurs with people over 40, and the maximum mortality is in people over 80. So it's basically about the ability of the people to fight these infections.
Right. And again, people who are a little bit older, what population is more in danger? Like people, what kind of diseases is the most dangerous to have that could lead to the death of the coronavirus? Like,
I can understand you. It's like when people age, people above 80 are the most vulnerable, as I told earlier. People above 80 already have some deterioration of their lung functions. Okay, so as you know, the coronavirus causes pneumonia. Pneumonia is a disease of the lungs, where the virus goes inside the lungs, and lungs is the place where there is oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. So it takes in oxygen and sends out the carbon dioxide. That's a very basic process needed for living, right? So the coronavirus goes inside, it destroys your lung, these air pockets, and it fills these air pockets with fluid, so that there's no oxygen or no carbon dioxide exchange happening over there. So this causes a failure of the entire body. So there is a multi-organ failure, a systemic failure of the body, and that's happens in people with less immunity, in people older than 80 years.
That does sound pretty scary in itself. Let's move into some of the things that we can do to prevent ourselves from the virus. What can we specifically do?
All right. So the WHO and the CDC, they have observed the virus transmission dynamics.
Okay.
And as of now, the virus can be transmitted by 3 ways. One is through direct contact. So close contact, as in like you and me sitting here together. So we are just talking, and if one of us is infected, the other person is sure to get infected. So that's close contact. The second one is droplet.
Right.
Droplet is the most significant or most common way of transmission that's happening because of the coronavirus. So any infected patient will have a cough. I mean, the cough is a common symptom of this coronavirus. So when a person coughs, there's millions and millions of tiny droplets that comes out of the patient. So each of these tiny droplets loaded with this coronavirus. Okay, and these droplets don't travel far. They just travel to the people surrounding you.
Right.
So in a train or in a meeting or in a bar or in a conference or a concert, so where there is a large gathering of people, when one person is infected and he or she coughs, these droplets just go to the people nearby.
But you got to be kind of close to the person. It can't be very, very far away. Can the droplets travel far away?
The droplets are kind of, it's slightly bigger and they are kind of settle down with gravity. So maybe the droplets travel for maybe a maximum of 4 to 5 feet. So anybody in that radius can get infected.
Right.
So if you're in a closely packed a hall or closely packed a train, so these droplets can go and infect a lot of people around you. I mean, that's the main reason why people are trying to shut down, close down these common gatherings, the places where people can gather. That's why the concerts are cancelled. The bars are shut down. So that's the second way. It's a droplet. The third way of transmission is by fomites. Fomites means infected object.
Right.
So when you cough or when you touch your face or when you cough in your fingers or cough in your palms, your hand is loaded with the coronavirus. And with this hand, you might open a doorknob, or you might hold a handrail. You might hold the holders in the train for your support. So unknowingly, you will take the coronavirus on your hands, and from your hands, you touch these places. And it has been reported that the coronavirus lives in these surfaces for around 5 hours.
5 hours.
5 hours. So 2 to 5 hours. So when you touch the handrail, and then you may go, and there's another person who's going to touch the same handrail, and that person, after touching the handrail, will be touching his nose, picking his nose, or touching his face,
rubbing their eyes
as well. So the virus from this, it indirectly through an inanimate object transfers to the third person. So I told you there's 3 ways to summarize. One is
direct contact.
Second one is
droplets,
and third one is fomites. Yeah. So these are the ways it gets transmitted. So, and it's really common sense to prevent this once you know the ways it's transmitted.
Yeah.
Can you list it out? How do you prevent contact?
You should always block your cough with your inner elbow.
Exactly. So that's how you block the second mode of transmission, droplets. So when you're getting a cough, you can either wear a mask or do not cough on your fingers or palms. The ideal recommended way to cough is to cough in your elbows.
Right.
Okay, so if we follow that, we can prevent the droplet spread. And then to prevent the contact spread, any infected patient should avoid contact with others. So if a person is diagnosed with corona, he or she should stay in the house and make sure doesn't contact with other people. Please don't go out. And then to prevent transmission by fomites, we should always wash our hands with water or sanitizer. They say just don't try to minimize touching your face and picking your nose or rubbing your eyes.
What about alcohol? Can you actually kill the virus with alcohol itself?
I know this is a common misconception. Like people try to drink more alcohol to kill the virus.
Yeah.
But that's really absurd because alcohol is a disinfectant. So we have alcohol sanitizers, and that has around 60% of alcohol, 60 to 70%.
Okay.
So this alcohol kind of dissolves the virus, the coat of the virus, the outer coat of the virus, and that's how it kills the virus. So the alcohol will be effective outside the body. So outside the body, the virus is a small particle. When it's exposed to alcohol that is above 60%, then it definitely kills the virus, kills the SARS-CoV-2. But inside your body, the virus is already inside your cells. It's not gonna kill. So please don't drink alcohol thinking that it'll kill coronavirus.
It's an excuse to drink
and
more.
Please don't buy vodka or whiskey and apply it on your skins, because I've heard this. I heard some people do this. Please don't do that, because only alcohols which are above 60%, 60 to 70%, they are effective in killing the virus.
Okay. I understand. Okay. It's very interesting. And also I've heard a little bit of information about masks and its prevention of viruses. How effective is using the mask?
Well, good question. So the mask that we get commonly in our stores, these are the ordinary surgical masks. So these have small pores by which they filter the air that you breathe. The pores are actually much bigger than the coronavirus itself. But the pores are much smaller than the droplets. Right? So it makes more sense if an infected person covers his face or his mouth with mask and he coughs inside the masks. So that will kind of reduce the number of droplets going around. Okay? So when the number of droplets going around reduces, the number of infections, number of people it can be transmitted also reduces. But people who are wearing the masks, the healthy people who are wearing the masks, they might not be as much benefited, because the coronavirus that has passed through the infected person's mask can easily pass through the healthy person's mask. But still, I personally think it's okay. It's okay, but there are still mixed observations about this. But the credible thing is it reduces the transmission from the infected person.
So what you just mentioned, the mask cannot prevent the virus penetrating through the mask, but they can prevent droplets coming in and out of the mask. Is that a clear understanding?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
But, but still, there is some kind of a gray area about it. But unless proven otherwise or until proven wrong, it's definitely good to wear a mask.
Okay. And a weird question, what do you think about the toilet paper? Running out of toilet paper, what is that? What do you think?
I think that's really absurd,
Because it's not only in Japan though, it's in Australia as well.
I guess this was a post or a tweet which was raised by somebody. If I'm not wrong, this person tweeted saying that China manufactures masks and toilet papers, and both of these products have the same raw material. Since the world has a demand for masks, China has stopped toilet paper production and diverted all those raw materials to produce a mask. And soon we'll be expecting a shortage of toilet papers. And that went viral and people are just panic buying and hoarding
Well, the guy did a good job.
Unnecessarily, right?
Yeah, he did a very good job.
So people, please don't panic. Please don't hoard toilet papers. I mean, it's really absurd, man.
Yeah, that's how information is used nowadays to scare people in a way. So as of the 9th of March, Yokohama City University, which you are a member of the lab, have found out a way to detect antibodies inside your blood, right? Sorry, I cannot explain very clearly myself. Can you please give me some input about what you guys have been doing and what you guys have done? Because it's such a very interesting things that you know.
I could make this more interesting by saying it's classified.
Please, come on.
but as a member of the team that that developed the diagnostics the test to detect antibodies. So any infection, virus or bacteria or any microbe infecting a body, the body mounts an immune response to fight it using antibodies. Okay, antibodies are the body's defense system. So likewise for the SARS-CoV-2, when we get this virus in the body mounts this immune response to produce specific antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. So this is present in the blood, and when we extract the serum from the blood, we can detect these SARS-CoV-2 antibodies. That's exactly what our lab has done. We have used ELISA and a card test, just like your pregnancy test, where you add a drop of urine and you get 2 lines. It's a positive, right? So like that, we have developed a test on serum. So you add a drop of serum and we get 2 lines. It's positive for coronavirus, and it's just 1 line, it's negative. So this test detects the antibodies specific to coronavirus.
Is it very accurate?
We are currently testing it. So right now we have a few corona patients sample with us, and in all of those samples that we tested, the positives are flagging positive.
Right.
And we also tested a number of negative samples from normal healthy people, and those are showing negative. So we kind of proposed this as a screening test, where a patient with fever, we can just collect the patient's blood and add a drop of the blood to the test strip. And if the patient doesn't get 2 lines, he or she can just go back to his house and chill.
And it's a very quick way to do it as well, right?
Yeah, it's a rapid method, and that's the unique feature of this test, because it's really rapid, around 15 to 30 minutes.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So right now we have the PCR. That's the only test that is available. PCR, or the polymerase chain reaction, which detects the DNA of the virus.
Right.
That's kind of a expensive test, and it takes a lot of expertise to do that, and it takes more time, a lot more time, around an hour at least.
Okay.
So our test that we developed, is much easier, much quicker, much simpler to use, and it tests on blood, so it's much safer for the people, right? For the people collecting the blood. But for the PCR, they have to collect the cough secretions and the sputum. So the person collecting can get infected. Right. So this test we had in mind to do a screening. To use it as a screening test. Right. So I hope we get much better results with bigger sample sizes, with more patients and more serum from different patients, so that we can exactly find the accuracy of the test. As of now, it's working good.
Wow. I am looking forward to some future practical applications with that. Yeah. Okay, so last few questions. What do you think the coronavirus will be like in the future? Do you think the deaths will stop increasing in a way?
Maybe
right
yes, maybe yes. If we take from the evolutionary perspective, a virus will try to achieve a kind of a coexistence with the host, stop killing. So maybe in the future the virus can become less virulent. And then, as we have seen with the seasonal influenza, you can see the virus comes only during specific seasons, during the cold climates.
Right.
So maybe this coronavirus can become a seasonal infection. It can cause many infections during a particular season and die down during other seasons. Right. So it can come in like cycles, annual cycles.
Okay. Some very interesting data. We're just coming up on time. Is there anything that you want to add, that you want to get across to the audience about anything with the coronavirus? Obviously, following something like a normal cough etiquette is very important. Stay away from sick people.
And don't panic and don't fall for misinformation.
Okay.
And
yeah.
What else? I think we have covered most of the topics.
Yeah, thank you. And where can people follow up on your work? What if people, as you know, you study something, usually you study the HIV, right?
HIV.
What if people want to maybe read up on some of your work? Where can they find it? They can maybe search your name.
Yeah, they can search my name, Jeremiah Stanley, and
it should come up.
Okay. With additional terms of HIV or coronavirus. Google search Jeremiah Stanley HIV or Jeremiah Stanley coronavirus. You might be getting... you will be getting those articles, yeah.
Okay. And what if people want to ask you questions? Can I link your email in the description or?
Yeah, sure. I'll just share you my email.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, bring the question.
He might get back to you. Well, thank you very much for some valuable information, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was really nice speaking with you. And I hope it's useful to the audience that you cater.
Okay, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions on what guests to have on the show, or even topics that you would like me to discuss, feel free to message me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. Just search Barbell Radio in one word and you should be able to find us there. Now, quick shout out to Adapt Inc., who had helped me produce this episode. Adapt is a consulting company that strives to make tourism easier in Japan. If you want to know more, they are on social media as Adapt Inc. in one word. Okie dokie, that's it for today. Have a nice day and see you next week.